morning, everyone. Today we are very honored to have Mike from Bacardi joining us this morning. Mike, the last time you attended Cannes was 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Oh my goodness, what have you seen so far? I mean, from then to now?
It's a huge change. And when I was here last 12 years ago, Jenny, I was with Young and Rubicam, the ad agency, and now obviously I'm coming as a client of Bacardi. And the differences, I think, are just immense. 12 years ago, it was really an industry event built around ad agencies, and probably 30 or 40% of it was built around prizes for creative people, and the rest of it was really almost an interview process for people who wanted to meet and think about their next job or where they might go, and it was very much really focused on the industry and on a very narrow definition of the industry. Now you come, and lo and behold, a decade later, there are clients here, and if you look at the beach, the Croisette, it's dominated by clients and by technology companies. So this whole set of beachfront property is owned now not by ad agencies, but by the clients of ad agencies and by tech partners. So I think that has been a profound difference in what Cannes is now as opposed to what it was.
Yeah, that's an acute observation actually. Now there is this invisible cloud looming over Cannes while the ad agency executives are sipping rosé, but you see all these tech companies coming in, and they are taking over the role of agencies, if I may say, being the new power brokers between clients like yourself and the traditional agency model.
They are,
yeah,
and I think the reason for that is the change that's happened in the nature of the advertising industry itself, the move away from broadcast TV and cable TV, the move away specifically for the ad agencies from the 30-second ad, the dominance of a 30-second ad. And remember, this was an industry, the ad agency industry was built on the 30-second ad. The problem is no one's watching it. So, it now has gotten to the point where everyone is aware that the old model doesn't work, and that everyone is walking around with a computer in their hand with great graphics. They're on it continuously, checking hundreds of times a day. And you have to be able to reach consumers in a new way, which has really played into, I think, the sweet spot of the tech guys and people who are developing content that really is targeted for those new devices. So the issue for the ad agencies is whether they can quickly adapt themselves to be able to provide creative work that really works for a different format.
Does this have anything to do with Bacardi eliminating the global CMO positions 2 weeks ago?
Well, that partly, but that really had more to do with our desire to move away from sort of this notion of a global CMO, and really push the brands down into the markets, so that we get closer to the consumer, closer to the trade, closer to where the action is, and we eliminate a lot of the steps and just the organizational barriers that we had put between ourselves and the brands and the consumers. So we're trying to get closer. We're trying to embed, take the CMO and really embed them into the regions, and that only works though. That model, which is a new model, I think, in the industry, that model only works if you have some connective tissue at the top, and that connective tissue is what we're calling a Center for Creative Excellence. And it's important, and those words are important, because the emphasis is really on how do you develop content, as we were talking about before, that really is appropriate to a new world. And how do you develop not only the content, but the various applications that really the consumers are looking for. So, being remote, and having a global CMO is really, we believe, sort of an old model. and what we're trying to do, as I said, is get closer to the field.
It's basically you're ditching the word marketing, just like the agencies are ditching the word television.
It's irrelevant. It really has become irrelevant. And what we found was that, in the new world where we're moving to, and I want to talk about China in a minute, what we're doing in China, because I think it really is illustrative of that point. But what we're doing is really moving to a new model, where we're saying, hey, we have to get closer to the consumer, we have to get closer to the markets. And the old model we had was a model built on the world of 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Oh, that's brilliant. How are you, concretely, how are you implementing this in Asia markets and emerging ones like China?
Well, and what we have done as well is to say, China's obviously a big market for us and a huge opportunity. We're very much focused on it. What we're doing is working closely with our new partner, BBDO, out of Shanghai, and they have probably the best agency in China. Sorry, you probably hear that from everybody you speak to who claims they have the best agency in China. But we are working very closely with them to make sure that what we're doing in China is really appropriate for our brands there, and appropriate for the distribution system that is in China. And one of the things that we were chatting a little bit before we actually started the TV presentation, but about Tmall. And Alibaba owns Tmall, and Tmall is just a phenomenon that we are very interested in. We're very, very focused on it. If you go on the website and look at products like ours, it looks pretty junky. It's a mess. And what we've asked our agency partners to do is, how do we take some of the really good creativity that these people can generate, and how do we apply that to the kind of free-for-all that is Tmall? And if we can, we believe that if we can get the creative right, the visuals right, and then use the strength of the distribution of Tmall, then we have something that really is a great opportunity to expand very quickly in China behind a great, what we have is a great series of products that we think will appeal to the Chinese population.
So just now you mentioned, this whole restructure is to get closer to the consumer. And in China, you have this new green tea liquor. What are the consumer insights and research that?
Well, it's built around tea, right? And the Chinese love tea. I'm sure you're. I'm a big consumer of tea. I hope you are a big consumer of tea. I'm sure you are. And it is part of the cultural and culinary landscape of the country. And what our guys have done is really, for the first time, been able to take complex sugars that are in tea and use them to create alcohol. So you have, for the first time, really an alcohol drink that is derived naturally from tea, combined only with very, very pure water. So we're making it in very small quantities at the moment. It's called Tang, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I hope I am. And it's a beautiful presentation. The bottle is beautiful. It's intended, because of the limited quantity that we have of the product, it's almost exclusive to China at the moment, but we expect over time to be able to broaden that out. I've had it, and it's wonderful. And we think, too, that aside from being kind of a drink that you would order if you went to the bar, or an aperitif before dinner, it is also a drink that we think will be in the repertoire of chefs as they make dishes. It's very combinable with Chinese food.
Well, how are you marketing it if you don't have a marketing department anymore?
Well, we're marketing it very exclusively, only to the top end bars in China. The 4 or 5 star bars. The best mixologists are getting allocations of the product. It'll appear in some of the duty-free shops, probably Hong Kong for sure, and Shanghai. the major duty-free shops where the Chinese population travels through, but you know, for the moment, for the amount that we can produce, that really is the focus. And we expect over time that we will have more innovations that are really tied to the specific tastes of the Chinese population. And this gets back to what I was saying before, that what we're trying to do is really get closer to the consumer. And this is a category, spirits, where, you know, you're used to, you say Bacardi rum. Bacardi rum was invented 153 years ago, right? Martini, vermouth, which is another one of our brands, is over 150 years old. Dewar's Scotch, which is another of our brands, is over 100 years old. So you get, you have brands that have this incredible longevity, and at the same time, you have a lot of percolation of new products, and Saint-Germain is another aperitivo that we have that is made from elderflower. You know, very little bit similar to the story about the tea. So it's made from elderflower, and it has a very French provenance to it. Tang is very much tied to what we think of the tastes and the aspirations of the Chinese consumer. So it's a category where you have standards that have been around for 100 or 150 years, and you have these percolating new products that really are driven by the requirements and the needs and the aspirations of consumers.
And coming back to Cannes, what do you think, I mean, what themes have you seen that is indicative of the market, and how would that apply that to Asia?
Well, I think there are two big themes in general. One is technology, and just cutting across the board. And I had breakfast with an old friend of mine who was with me in the ad agency, and he said, it's all about this. He said, now it's all about this. So he said, you can forget the TV. And the issue is, how do you develop content that is really appropriate for small screen? And by the way, it's also shorter formats as well. So it can't be just 30 seconds, it has to be 15 seconds, 10 seconds, even micro. So, and the ad agencies to this point have really not done a great job to develop content appropriate for mobile and for the small screen and for the very, very short micro format. So I think that really is going to be the emphasis, not only in this con, but over the next few years. What you're going to see is more and more emphasis on that technology and the issue of content that is appropriate to that technology.
Oh, it looks like there's a huge opportunity then. Yes.
It's a terrific opportunity. And you know, you look at the penetration of smartphones in all parts of the world, and China and India and Indonesia, and it's phenomenal. And this will be the vehicle by which people get their content.
Brilliant, brilliant. So thank you very much, Mike. I hope we drink more rum along with rosé next can.
And Tang.
Yes, and Tang too.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much again.
All right. Thank you very much, Jenny.
Yes.